The first piece I played in my program at Methuen was a Toccata in 7 by the British composer John Rutter. It really is a stirring piece of music. It's a great opening piece. I hope you enjoy it. There is no air conditioning in this hall. We have fans going at high speed and they are turned off for the concert. And let's see what the temperature is in here today. It's 81 and the humidity is 59. That's humid. This hall is used primarily for organ concerts. Good reason, they have a very fine organ. But it is a music hall and they have 2 instruments on the side here. 2 Steinways. I've sat at many organs and I've looked for the organ blower switch. But on this organ, this would be impossible unless somebody told me where it is. Let me show you where it is. In this panel here, which opens, is the organ blower switch, the on button and the off button. Very, very well concealed. Yesterday, we had a tour of the organ. Let's cut to that. Reservoirs are here. How many of those are there? Two reservoirs, okay. Oh, wow. It's like entering a little house, isn't it? Or a big house, actually.
It gets better.
It gets better. I'll follow you, Bruce.
What is
this here? This is actually I've got a print here of a...
The stop list.
Is that the original TourBus right over there? What are these, do you know what these crosses mean?
I can't tell.
Violoncello crosses, there's push.
I never really noticed that before, to be honest
Push
with you.
button, oh, pedal combination. Oh, I think they're to do the combination. Push button combinations, that's lovely. Principal bass. That's pretty neat.
The main wind line?
Got here the wind lines from downstairs. You can see they're pretty substantial.
This is the kind of steep steps you need to be careful.
Okay, I think I could take my shoes off on this one, I think.
Yeah. Oh yeah, those shoes would be probably...
I bought the wrong shoes now, and I didn't want to wear my organ shoes. So Kerry, we're going to go upstairs now and take my shoes off.
We don't usually let barefooted people in here, but you're an exception.
Okay, I'm an exception. Well, my feet are very clean, actually. Coming upstairs. Wow. So this is a second story of the organ. Wow. That's great. I don't think I want to go up there.
It gets pretty frightening on the top.
That is
This is the biggest pipe.
that big. That one over there. What's that, Bruce? Can you see that's the biggest pipe over there? That one against the wall, the square one, yeah?
Yeah. It's wood too,
Yeah,
so...
it would be, yeah, wouldn't it? So when you actually tune those big pedal pipes, you go right to the top up there.
Well, remember you asked me about
Yeah.
which of these are live. You can see the wind lines feeding them.
Okay, let's have a look at those wind lines. Okay.
Let me get over your
Big.
shoulder.
All right, you're going to get over my shoulder. The wind lines here, these tell us which are the actual pipes that speak on the facade.
Right, let me see if I can make it sound.
Not a lot of room up here. Oh, look at that. And there's nobody at the console. Don't know what
He's
to
opening the stop.
That's me.
Yeah.
It's a ghost of
You could do a
Methuen.
nice cipher for me when I was playing, couldn't you?
You can see the stairs go up, and then another stairs go up, and then another stairs
Yeah.
go up.
You send a very small kid up there.
That's right.
Like the chimney sweeps in England.
We don't feed him much.
No. So what are these here?
This is the positive section, I believe.
Okay.
And this is the grade.
Yeah.
And that's the swell, and that's the choir.
Okay. I mean, you've got no handrails here at all, have you?
No.
You've got,
This isn't meant for
no, I know that. I mean, just,
touring.
no, I know, it's just fabulous, thank you. So over there behind us is the, which is the swell and which
This
is
is the swell.
the swell is right behind you, Kerry.
We can go in that.
Okay, and that'd be the choir
That's
over
the
there.
choir over there. This is the grade right in front of us. This must be a mixture here. What is this?
Yeah. I can't read that, but it must be a mixture. You see that tiny little pipe there?
I'm gonna read.
And then you see the huge pipes at the front. That's amazing, isn't it? This tiny little pipe and then the huge facade pipes. Wow. Do you see this, Karen?
Hang on.
Little pipes here. I mean, they're smaller than my finger. Get yourself something. Tiny little pipes. They're smaller than my finger. Smaller than my finger. Amazing. Each one has to be tuned. How often does it get tuned?
We do one division per spring. Every spring we come here and we do one division. We did one division and the pedal this spring. And so next year we'll do another division and
So-
touch up the others.
And it all keeps together through the year? I mean,
Yeah,
that's
it's
pretty
pretty good.
amazing, isn't
Except, you know, when it gets really warm, it's...
it? Yeah. Two parts of this all enclosed, the swell and the choir. The choir is the fourth keyboard on the top, which is kind of unusual, isn't it? I'm going to be in the way here. Oh, lovely.
The walkway probably reached the ranks over there.
Wow. Well, we are in the swell box, literally, that's where the term comes from. The swell pipes are in a box, and there we're looking at in front of us are the shutters, which I can operate with my foot pedals to let the sound swell out. That's where it comes from. It's pretty neat, isn't it? Yeah.
Plus the air doesn't move.
There's all those cotton wool there for putting in your ears, right?
No, that is.
I just thought, how do you stand so close to some of these things when they're tuned? I mean, it's loud downstairs, but to stand next to those mixtures.
Well, that's what they're for, is when you tune a mixture, you have to block 3 of the pipes
Okay.
and listen to just one,
Okay.
and then tune them one at a time.
You wouldn't want to come in here when this organ's being played. It's a cute little organ. Wow.
So you can imagine how hot it is at the top.
That must be. That's phenomenal.
I don't think they really know how famous this instrument is. Every time I come in the room, it's just old. This was built when Abraham Lincoln was president, 1863.
That's amazing.
And I'll take you downstairs and show you something.
That was great, wasn't it? That was really great.
To the building, because the road was flooded.
Yeah.
But I finally got to the building, and I came in the door, and I came right here, and I stopped because the water was right there.
Oh my. So you knew the blower was in serious. The blower was
And the
had
electronics and well, there's a whole mess of stuff.
Coming down to the basement, nice and cool down here. Ooh, that's nice.
They had a mark on the
It's
wall
very
where the
low.
water was,
Very low, isn't it?
but I would say the water was somewhere around this high.
Wow, water was up to here. Very dark now.
This is the blower, and this is the main feed where we were
Yeah.
upstairs. This is what was underwater.
Wow.
Separate blower for, I believe it's the swell shades.
This is the main blower for the organ. And over there is a separate blower for the swell shades. And this was all covered in water about a year ago. Wow.
When did they put that in?
Well, that's not gonna help, I'll tell you.
The king of ragtime writers is Scott Joplin, and his music, like many of the great composers, has a distinct fingerprint. You hear some Mozart, you hear some Debussy, you hear some Beethoven, you know immediately there is a fingerprint there and you recognize the composer immediately. Well, so with Scott Joplin, a few bars and you know you're in that delightful, quaint style of music. The Entertainer is probably his most famous piece, and that is a piece I chose for that evening. It sounded glorious on the great Methuen organ. Mozart Changes by Zsolt Gárdonyi is a very unusual piece of music. It starts off with a charming Mozart-like fragment and then moves through various styles of music, right through to some really jazzy styles. The organ at Methuen can make quite a good theatre organ sound. And then when the piece has reached that climax, we cut right back to the intro, to that very quaint style again. Mozart Changes by Zsolt Gárdonyi. actually played a number of concerts on this great organ in Methuen. And there's one person there, Ed Sampson, who I have known for years. He's a president of the Board of Trustees, but he's also a great friend. He knows the organ's history inside out, and he's going to tell us now about the story from when it was first built to its present day. So can you, sum up the history of this great organ?
Okay, the history of the great organ, and that's what it's called, the great organ, has been since 1863. The Boston Music Hall was built in 1852, and it was without an organ when it opened. But one of their chief organizers, that is the gentleman who raised the money and got the network of people to build the Boston Music Hall, was a guy by the name of Dr. Jabez Baxter Upham. He was Jabez Baxter Upham, U-P-H-A-M. He was a physician, a doctor, but he loved organ music. So he and his network of well-heeled individuals by public subscription raised money to build the Boston Music Hall. And it was unique at the time. It was first concert hall of any appreciable size, probably held between 2,000 and 3,000 people, quite large. There's a picture of our organ in that hall on the right transept. Yes. So he had it built, but he always thought it should have an organ. And he took that as a personal challenge to before he would die, and I think he died in 1902, to see an organ in there. And at that point, 1852, there were no concert pipe organs. There were probably organs in churches, but nothing of this scale. So around 1863, actually several years prior to that, because it did get impacted by the American Civil War, they raised money to build, to purchase a pipe organ. And the question came, do we use an American builder or a European builder? So Mr. Dr. Upham and his circle of friends went to Europe. They supposedly talked to Franz Liszt, and got his input. And he recommended Lagerstadt, I think it's pronounced. And ultimately they went with Walker, even though we would think it's Walker, but it's Walker, Eberhard Friedrich Walker. So the long and short of that story is, the case was made in the United States of American black walnut wood. Hammett Billings was the guy that sketched the initial design. The Rutter brothers in New York actually did the carving, so the final design and all the intricacy, Rutter brothers. The organ came on board a ship, sailed out of Rotterdam. The name of the ship was Presto. But its voyage was adagio, or langsam, as they would say in German, because it was delayed by storms. They thought that maybe the Civil War pirateers had captured it and so forth. Wow. So the organ was brought to this country, put behind this magnificent case in the Boston Music Hall, and opened with a gala event in November of 1863. And was the pride of musical Boston for several decades thereafter. So organists of fame in Boston and from other parts of the country came to play, and of course in that era they played the standard repertoire of Bach and Gilmont.
Yes.
There was this big interest in making the New World the equal of Europe. So you'd think they would have gone to the Hook brothers or somebody and said, build us the finest organ that you can build. But in any event, Walker got the contract, it was built, and as we said earlier, it was the pride and joy of musical Boston for several decades. Then around 1881, a gentleman by the name of Colonel Higginson formed the Boston Symphony Orchestra. And it was the first time that a structured, large symphonic orchestra played in the Boston area. And they played in the Boston Music Hall. But 121 players, something like that, in a full symphony orchestra, they didn't fit on the stage. The organ took up too much space. So for reasons that we have been able to research, which include lack of stage space and differing tastes, In other words, maybe the big selling point of the organ originally was organists can play transcriptions of the symphonic repertoire,
So they were conflicting.
and now we can have the real orchestra play it. So what do we need the organ?
I don't know, but obviously they didn't get on.
They didn't get on. So it almost came to a court battle because
Wow.
public subscription raised the money, which was $60,000 to build the organ in 1863. So a lot of that funds came from John Q and Mary Jane Public, if you will.
Yeah.
And therefore the public had an interest, in Dr. Upham and his colleagues tried to emphasize that nobody has the right to take this public funded instrument out of this hall.
That must have been.
Well, he lost because the symphony orchestra ultimately did play under George Herschel in the Boston Music Hall.
Yeah.
So the summer of 1884, the Hutchings Playstead Company,
Yes.
pipe organ builders, dismantled the organ, the famous Boston Music Hall organ, disassembled in many crates stored in a field, if you will.
So let me just recap. This organ comes all the way from Germany, across the ocean, Adagio,
Yep.
in the ship called Presto.
Exactly.
Goes into the music hall. How long was it in the music hall before it was?
1863 to the summer of 1884.
Wow. And then it's just there, and then it's completely dismantled, the whole thing.
Well, it cost $60,000 in 1863. We don't know whether that included the case or not. Probably not.
No.
So, summer of 1884, it gets taken out, it's stored. Mr. Grover with Mr. Tourjay, he might have been a doctor also, wanted to have a New England Conservatory of Music edifice built to house the organ. Mr. Grover dies. Mr. Tourjay dies. The heirs to the Grover estate don't know what to do with this white elephant. So in 1887, I believe, it's auctioned in Boston. And word got out in the New York Times and the Boston Daily Globe that the famous Boston Music Hall organ will be auctioned such and such a time, such and such a place. That's where we first hear about Edward F. Searles. Edward Francis Searles, a Methuen resident, very poor, humble beginnings, raised on a farm, had a predilection for the arts, but had to work in a mill, was an apprentice carpenter. His father died when he was very young. He had to help his mother support a younger brother. But nonetheless, Mr. Searles, or Edward F. Searles, had an interest in fine art and music. So he got piano lessons, organ lessons. I guess from what we've been able to research, became quite proficient on the organ. And he is got a letter of introduction from the Rutter brothers, and he meets Mrs. Mark Hopkins, who was at that time the richest widow in the country. Mr. Searles ultimately testified in court that he married her for both love and money.
Wow.
But in any event, so after about 5 years of married life, the elder Mrs. Hopkins, now Mrs. Searles, passed away. And much to the surprise of everybody, she, as I said earlier, bequeathed everything to him, which was estimated to be somewhere between $20 and $50 million. So Mr. Searles now has this bag of money that he doesn't know what to do with. But aha,
Yes,
he likes art and he likes organs. So the Boston Music Hall organ, disassembled, is available at auction for purchase. So he had founded, became the financial backer of James Treat, who was an organ builder of American training from New Haven, Connecticut, and formed the Methuen Organ Company, James Treat Organ Builder, in our parking lot. I point down here because that burned in 1943, but the actual edifice existed in our parking lot. So their foreman, John M. Ingraham, I-N-G-R-A-H-A-M, was sent by Mr. Searles and Mr. Treat to Boston to represent Methuen Organ Company at the auction. Asked the bidding to open at something like $15,000, and there were no bids. So it got down to $1,500, and a voice says, 1,500. Who are you, sir? John Ingraham, representing Methuen Organ Company, financially backed by Edward F. Searles. Sold to the gentleman. The hall, Carol, that you and I are sitting in now and where you played last night so eloquently, the Methuen Memorial Music Hall, built as Searle Organ Hall, was built expressly to house this organ by Mr. Searles. He retained an English architect by the name of Henry Vaughan, V-A-U-G-H-A-N. And with his wealth, he expanded and expanded and expanded and built feudal, English-looking Anglo granite walls with turrets around them.
So the turrets around here
originate with Mr. Searles. The actual turrets in our parking lot that demark the southern boundary of our parking lot and our property with the Spigot River were built by Mr. Searles, his funding.
So he came from a very poor background. He married money, and his life was always, his hobby was always organs. That is
so
really like a fairy tale.
It is. It's a fascinating story. So 10 years to build the hall, and the organ was reassembled and rebuilt, and you and your listeners may be interested that the case was retained. That is not changed to any great extent. The console was modernized. The action was changed from Barker-assisted tracker action to electro-pneumatic action with slider chests.
And that original console is the one tucked
Correct, in the niche of the organ case.
That looks quite frightening to play, actually.
Yes, and the worst seat in the house because all the sound acoustics going over your head. And the short straight pedal board, and yes, it would be not a
3 expression pedals.
The organ, as it was assembled in this hall, was dedicated for a private function November of 1909. Mr. Searles had Everett Truitt play. We have the program, it's on the wall of the transept over there between some pieces of glass. We understand from some recent research that a month or two thereafter, there's a contemporary newspaper article that indicates that the public was allowed in, and Mr. Truitt played again a different program, but it was the first time that the general public was allowed in the hall. During much of Mr. Searles' life, the only people that heard the organ were Mr. Searles' circle of friends. That would be, one assumes, affluent, influential people interested in the arts, music, organists.
So he died in 1920.
Died in 1920.
When was this taken over, basically, for concerts?
1946. What happened in the interim was the bulk of Mr. Searles' estate upon his death in 1920 went to his business secretary, Arthur T. Walker, who was born in Ontario, Canada, and only lived about 6 years after Mr. Searles died. Single gentleman, nose to the grindstone, never let the money influence him. He lived in a 2-room apartment in Brooklyn Heights throughout all of this era. Never changed his lifestyle at all.
Wow.
It was said that a newspaper man went to interview him, and he learned that in the 6 years following his inheritance of Mr. Searles' fortune, he had not added one piece of furniture to his home. So Arthur T. Walker dies, and his relatives were in Canada.
Were they different? Did they go nuts?
Well, there's an Ina Cecile McEachran, who was the next heir that held title to the hall. We don't know yet much about her. We're trying to research that now, but we don't know much about her. But around 1930, she sold off the White Elephant. So it was sold to a real estate tycoon here. And then shortly thereafter, Ernest M. Skinner of Aeolian Skinner Pipe Organ Manufacturing Company in Boston bought the land, bought the property, bought the edifice, took out a mortgage on it, ultimately failed on the mortgage. And this was around the time of the Second World War, 1940s. So times were tough, and there were federal government restrictions on the use of metals. The metals were required for building tanks and bullets and so forth. So pipe organ builders were very challenged to get the metal to make the pipes to sell the organs, and money was tough anyway. So
This was a German organ.
this was a German organ. Exactly.
too well,
That didn't go well. So Skinner held title to it. Under Skinner's ownership, a number of famous organists, including Marcel Dupré, played here, E. Power Biggs, etc. Skinner, let's see, Skinner's mortgage was foreclosed by the bank, and a gentleman by the name of Alfred C. Gaunt, a famous name in this town, Gaunt, G-A-U-N-T, who was a successful mill operator. He purchased the property by virtue of paying the mortgage off. So the bank wasn't going to foreclose, somebody bought it.
With the organ.
With the organ.
Yeah.
And he wanted the water rights of the Spigot River that flows beside us. So he was altruistic in that he kept the organ from being, he kept the property intact, but he also wanted the water rights. So we retained the water rights, and then the next day for $1, just a deed transfer, Mr. Gaunt conveyed the ownership of the property to a then formed corporation known as Methuen Memorial Music Hall, 1946. So it's existed since that time as a 501c3 tax-exempt nonprofit organization.
Wow.
So in answer to your question, the long answer to the short question is, when did this magnificent place become a public concert venue? Around 1946.
Wow, that's...
And that's quite a few years back.
So you've had a lot of programs.
Yes.
Now program-wise, you run through the summer, not the winter.
Correct.
Has that always been tradition, just summer concerts?
With minor exception. The big problem is there's 300,000 cubic feet of space in the hall. It's steam heat fired by oil. It's been although it's built very well, it's always been a challenge under anybody's ownership to heat the hall.
Yeah.
So, and as you know, temperature affects the pitch and the tuning of the organ and so forth. So for decades, the hall has been put in mothballs, if you will, around Christmas time, and then reopened around April.
Well, Ed, that is a really great history. I mean, that's just, you've narrowed it down. It's a huge history, this organ, it really is. And you're the current president.
Yep.
How many presidents have there been? Do you get a new president every year?
No, I've been in this capacity for quite some time. I think I got on the board around 1971 and I don't know, within 5 or 6 years, I guess, was named president, and I guess have been ever since.
And you know so much about this organ, and you know so much about music too. I have to say that this venue, this venue, and I've got to tell our viewers, is where we get program details, which I find amazing. You do the research on the dates of the composers, when they actually wrote the piece.
I'm an electrical engineer by training, but somewhere along the line, I think God wanted me to be a musicologist because I love exploring and digging.
Where do you get all your dates?
In the old days, I'd go to the library and look at Groves and look at Collis Arnold's book and all these things. Now the internet. If you use the internet and you know what the source is, I mean, there's a lot of fluff out there, but if you go to the right area, you can get a lot of info.
And you've always done that?
I've always made it. Some of the people on the board say it clutters the program up.
It's fascinating to see when a composer was living and to see when he wrote that piece, like The Entertainer was written in 1902, right?
Yes, that's what we said. Yep, Scott Joplin.
Do you think this building's haunted?
I've spent many an hour in here working late at night.
Have you ever experienced anything?
I've never experienced anything that is out of the ordinary. I think the closest thing to that, at one time we had a bat in the hall.
Ed, Thank you so much for joining us in our series.
It's been a
TourBus.
pleasure.
It has been a pleasure for me to be here, to play a concert, to get around the building, to get inside the organ, and for you to tell us about the history of it. It really is a fairy tale.
It is.
Everything's going to work out for this instrument
Great.
because it always has. There's always going to be a future for this organ. And again, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Another modern piece of music is by the British composer Giles Swayne. It's called Riff Raff. It is a very extensive piece of music. It has many idioms, mainly a jazz idiom built into the work. I have to say it's a very difficult piece to play and takes a lot of preparation, but the Methuen organ, oh, it works so well for this piece, and I completely lost myself in the performance. I hope you like Riff Raff. Thank you for joining us in this series TourBus Goes to Methuen. I hope you've enjoyed it. We certainly enjoyed going there. Join us in the next program where we go to the great organ in San Diego, the Spreckels Organ Pavilion. For more information, go to the website carolwilliamsnow.com. Send us an email, tell us what you think of us. We want to hear from you. Thank you, take care, goodbye.